WCSM's General Store is recorded at 70X7 Studios. WCSM is brought to you by Chad's Express Lube and Car Care Center. Christine Flynn, your local farmer's insurance agent. For Good Reasons Roofing, your hometown roofing specialist. And by Sanders Insurance, your independent insurance experts. And now, WCSM's General Store crew.
Well, hello and welcome to WCSM's General Store from the 70X7 studio. It's good to have you with us on this Friday. Thanks, as always, to Mike and Carter producing the show for us. Couldn't do it without them. Couldn't do it without you. There's no reason to do it without you, so we do appreciate so much that you are always with us and tuning in. And we think this is going to be a really special episode today, so we hope you watch it more than once and share it with all your friends, because we have got the great John Laskowski in studio with us.
That's right.
Legendary IU basketball player, sports broadcaster, and author, restaurant entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yes, all the above.
think there are so many things, John, I could say about you and just praise you, but I have to say, my favorite thing is that you brought Culver's to Bloomington.
I get that a lot.
I bet you do. I love Culver's, but it's not the Butterburger for me. It's your fish sandwich.
Oh, good.
I love the fish sandwich and the crinkle fries. I mean, for me.
And the walleye just came out. It'll be here for about 5 more weeks. I think it's about April 1st when Easter comes. Freshwater fish from Minnesota.
Nice.
Canada. Long and thin, different than the cod. So
now is it a sandwich? But it's
sandwich or dinner.
Nice.
Oh. And how much longer?
5 more weeks.
Okay, I better get in there for that, because I always get the cod.
We
So
sell a lot of it.
Friday. Now, is the walleye something
Friday,
you do every year?
Yes.
Is
All
it for
farmers around the country?
Okay,
Nice.
I didn't know that. I'll have to try that. Yeah,
We've already
I
learned something new already.
love me a fish sandwich from Culver's. So good. So
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to basically just wind John up and turn him loose, because we want to talk to John. I think all of us remember. Most of us, and if you're young and don't know and don't remember, you need to go and look up some vintage footage of Laz playing basketball here at Indiana University. But most people know what John Laskowski did. He was an IU basketball player, but we want to know who he is, so we're going to start. You don't have to go all the way to the beginning, like the day you were born, but we would like to know. But you can if you want to, if you remember it. So first of all, do you know how big you were when you were born? Do you know your height?
Which doesn't matter.
No. So how tall are you, really?
6'6".
You're 6'6". Okay. And so tell us a little bit about John as a young boy growing up. Where were you born and raised?
So born in South Bend, Indiana, and my dad was a tool and die designer, and he worked for a company called Collins Radio. And they called one day and said, "We're transferring you to Cedar Rapids, Iowa."
Oh.
And so I was about kindergarten, and we moved to Iowa, which is like a half hour from Iowa City.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't know anything about Indiana Hoosiers at the time.
Right.
And I was about 7 years old, January of 1961. Okay. And he comes home and he says, "Hey, I got some tickets to the Hawkeye Arena. They're playing the Indiana Hoosiers.
No
I'm
kidding.
Take you to your first Big Ten game."
And you were 7?
7 years old.
About 7 years old. Okay.
And I thought, man, how cool. So we go to the game, and the Hawkeyes come out to warm up. And I stand up, and I start clapping for the Hawkeyes because we live in Iowa.
Right.
Now, here's a guy that only went to high school, South Bend Central, and never played sports. You know, he grabs me by the arm, sets me down. He says, "Son, you're a Hoosier."
That's right.
And no matter where we live, you'll always be a Hoosier. And man, I was like stunned. Like, wait a minute here. And Indiana beat them that day, killed them, in fact. And I've got to meet the players from that team.
Oh.
Very nice.
61 Indiana Hoosier team. So
Redenbaugh and Van
it
Arsdale?
was a little before them.
Okay.
It would have been Bolliard and Rail.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that bunch
Wow.
that was there at that game. And man, we had Indiana had a good team. I say,
Yeah.
we're ready.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was no longer going to be a Hawkeye fan. I was going to be an Indiana fan.
Yeah.
So he passed away that November. Okay, this is in January. He passed away when I was 8 years old.
Your dad?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So he never got to see me play.
Oh.
But he knew that he was a diabetic and they didn't have dialysis machines and he had bad kidneys. And he rented the house in South Bend because he knew that he wouldn't live very long. And my mom's brother and sisters and her mom lived in Indiana. And so when he passed away, we moved back to that house that he bought before. And that's where I grew up. So it was kind of interesting how he ended up back in South Bend, but he knew it was going to happen.
Wow.
What got you started playing basketball?
Yeah.
So
at that point, when the first game you went to, you hadn't played basketball, nothing,
Yeah,
knew nothing about it. Okay. Okay.
No, just hanging around the kids. We played baseball a lot.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And I asked my mom to go out for football in 8th grade, and she said, "You're too skinny. You're not going out for football." And I led the league in strikeouts at Little League.
Well, there you go. Good job.
But I wasn't a pitcher. I was a batter. Okay.
That's fine.
So the baseball thing,
still a good
that's
story.
not going to work out.
That
either.
didn't work out.
That
Okay.
didn't work out either. So I started playing basketball, and 6th grade was the first team I made, and just kind of worked my way up to high school. I went to a public grade school, and the feeder school was South Bend, Washington.
Okay.
And my 8th grade year, they won the sectional. They won the regional. They went to the semi-state in Fort Wayne. I said, man, these guys are good, you know?
Right.
And I wasn't very good yet.
Yeah.
And so South Bend St. Joe was 4-16 my 8th grade year. I said, now there's opportunity. You know? And so I said, Mom, I think I want to go to St. Joe.
Wow.
And so that was the reason, because the other team was too good.
Yeah.
So I go to St. Joe, and I averaged 20 points my freshman year.
Oh, wow.
At St. Joe,
Amazing.
yeah. I scored 20 points the whole year. You guys misunderstood. There were 12 games, so
Okay.
that's a point and a half a game.
That's still better than I did.
As the freshman. Better than some, but it's not get any calls yet. And
No college coaches are ringing your door.
no. So my sophomore year, I was on the JV team, okay?
Right.
And running around and trying to do what I can. I think I scored about 10 points a game. You know?
Yeah.
So I was always an offensive player. That defense was for the other guy.
Okay. I got
I'm
you.
a scorer, so I'm
got
working
you.
on my game. My junior year, I was one of the tallest kids on the team. Had grown now to 6'5".
Oh, wow.
And so I'm playing center, and we had another forward who was a senior. He's kind of the star of the team, and I was kind of the backup guy, you know. And I remember my senior year then being at lunch with my buddies. You know, I had a little table. Everybody has their buddies.
Right, sure.
I said, guys, you know, if I scored 5 more points a game, that would be 20 points a game, you know, compared to 20 points a whole year. You know?
Right.
I said, that would just be amazing. And so we had our very first, it was kind of an inter-squad game, and they invite the fans in, and it's basically the varsity against the second team and some of the JV team, you know. And so I go out there, and I get 35 points.
In one game?
One game, in this practice game, okay?
Wow.
And I get in the locker room, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, hey, that was good. So Bob Donewald is my high school coach.
I was going to bring that
And
up.
he says, hey, you're playing against the second team in the junior varsity. He said, you should have had 50. And I'm thinking, what? I'm going for 20.
Yeah.
And I'm like king of the hill at 35.
Yeah.
And he says, you should have had 50. And the point was, you can do better.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it got started, that maybe I can. And Abernathy, Tom Abernathy, was a junior on the team.
Yeah.
Had just moved up from the varsity. He was kind of young and clumsy, and, you know, it was kind of on me.
Yeah.
And averaged 29 points a game that year, my senior year in high school. My high game was 49. So coach was right.
Yeah.
You could score 50.
Yeah.
And I did. I got 49
amazing?
against Jackson.
Yeah.
And who knew it? 6th leading scorer in the state of Indiana my
Nice.
senior year.
That's
From
amazing.
1.5 points a game as a freshman to 29 points a game as a senior.
So you and Tom Abernathy went to school together, same school, and he was a year behind you? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No
We played high
kidding.
school.
Yeah.
And then he came to Indiana a year behind me there. We played 3 years together in Indiana.
Yeah.
So do you remember the process? So you've gone through high school now, senior year. I don't know, was the recruiting process back then the same or not the same? I'm sure it's not the same, but I mean, like, did Coach Knight come and recruit you, or how did that all play out? How did you end up at IU?
Yeah, very different back then. You didn't announce till after your senior year. Nobody announced as sophomore or junior, I'm going to go here. I mean, it was after your senior year. But they recruited you your senior year, and then you kind of had an idea. So when a coach comes in April and gets the job, it's like it's pretty late. But he did look for Catholic school kids to go to Army. And he was at Army, my senior year. Coach K was a Catholic school kid from Chicago, and he recruited him to come to Army. And, of course, that worked out pretty good. So he sent a scout to see me play in South Bend. It was early December. One of my first games, I was not the big stud yet, and guess we're playing South Bend, Washington. The school I should have gone to, you know? Yeah. And my junior high buddies, they're better than I am in 8th grade. Right. And now I'm supposed to be better than them. Right. Okay. But in my mind, I'm still thinking I'm just an 8th grader that is not very good. Sure. It's the worst game of the year. I scored like 15 points. Yeah. We won the game, but it was so this scout came to see me play. And he goes back to Army and says he's not good enough to play at Army, But at least he knew who I was, Right. So when he got to Indiana, he started looking around, and now he's recruiting Indiana kids and got a hold of my coach. That started that process. Yeah. So it wasn't until like 5 years ago. Yeah. I'm talking to Coach Donewald, and he says, he said, did I ever tell you who the scout from Army was that came to see you? And I said, well, no, but it doesn't mean anything now. I mean, the guy didn't know basketball. So, well, it was Bill Parcells.
Oh, my Lord.
Wow. The football coach for the Super Bowl New York Giants. Yeah. Wow. I said, what? He goes, yeah. So he and Knight were buddies. Yeah, I knew Parcells was the defensive back coach at Army when Knight was the head coach. Okay. And you talk about two guys exactly alike. Those guys are twins. Yes, exactly. So they just sucked right up to each other, and they were buddies. Yes. And so this is December, so the football season's over. And I'm sure he was probably going to see Eric Parsi at Notre Dame to learn some stuff about football. And he says, oh, by the way, go across the street and go see this kid, pay $2 and tell me what you think of him. Right. So Parcells is Friday night. He goes over to watch
football
the game.
Coach.
Yeah, football coach. He says, oh, this guy's not good. Don't worry about it. And so now time goes by. I'm at Indiana. Parcells comes to visit. Hey, he said, you remember that kid you went to see? Yeah. He turned out to be pretty good. He said, I'm never sending you again to see a player because you may know football. You know crap about basketball. So that's right. That's how that worked out. But Coach, he called Coach Donewald, and I did, and he said, hey, I got the Indiana job. Whatever happened to that kid that we looked at in December? Yeah. He said, unbelievable, 29 points a game, second team All-State, 6th leading scorer of Indiana. He said, you got to come see, you got to see this kid. Right. And so the season was over, but Coach Donewald sent some tape. Right, sure. And in those days, you would splice 8 millimeter film together. Yeah. He must have spliced like 8 games together, really good plays, Yeah. And I said, well, take a look at him. And he was real behind the 8 ball. Most guys had decided where they're going to go, and I was still kind of up in the air, wasn't sure what to do. And he was trying to find a 6'5" guard forward. He had these images of people that he needed to be successful.
Put the puzzle together.
Yeah. So the best 6'5" guard forward in Indiana was not me.
Delivery's great.
It was Pete Trigovich from East Chicago, Washington.
Never heard that name.
Undefeated state champions, great team. And so Knight goes to see Trigovich. He says, hey, I'm Bob Knight. I'm going to create a dynasty at Indiana. He said, I need a guard forward just like you. I want you to come to Indiana. And Trigovich never heard of the guy. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to UCLA. They already have a dynasty. Yeah. And he did. Yeah. And won 2 national championships and turned Bob Knight down. Yeah. So then he realized his mistake and came after Jerry Nichols from Greenwood, okay? And now this is going to be his guy, all right? And not only did he go himself, because nobody knew who he was. He's got this figured out now. I got to bring some people who have credibility. Right. The Van Arsdale twins are from Greenwood. I'll bring the Van Arsdales with me, and we'll talk to this kid. Yeah. And they did. And I laid out his plan, defensive-oriented, offensive plays, da-da-da. And Jerry said, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to Indiana. I'm going to go. And he went to Purdue. Hurt his knee, didn't play much. I was the 3rd choice for my position, and I jumped all over it.
Yeah. Wow. And the rest.
We do need to talk about something that he said that interested you.
Well, let's take a quick break and a good teaser there to come back to. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to find out what that story is after this break at the General Store.
Local Farmers Insurance agent Christine Flynn put her experience to work for you. Christine Flynn proudly serves Monroe, Lawrence, and Greene County families and businesses and is ready to review your existing policies or provide a no-obligation quote today. Call Christine Flynn at 812-822-2905 to get smarter about your insurance. Again, that's Christine Flynn at 812-822-2905. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
Chad's Express Lube and Car Care Center is the place that you need to go to keep your car running in perfect order. On the outside chance your car is not running in perfect order, Chad's has a shop over on State Road 46 in Ellisville that'll give you a free estimate and reasonable rates and get your car back on the road. Now, to keep it that way, you need to hightail it over to Chad's Express Lube and Car Care Center located at 1357 South Liberty Drive. You know exactly where that is. That's just right around the corner from Menards. Now, check this out. Every 7th oil change is free. That's right. Absolutely free. I don't think you can get any better than that. Chad's Express Lube and Car Care Center, 1357 South Liberty Drive in Bloomington. For Good Reasons Roofing. The number 4, goodreasons.com. They want to be your local hometown roofing specialist. Whether it's hail damage, storm damage, worn out, just plain old damage, or maybe it's new construction. Whatever your 4 reasons are to have a new roof, their 4 good reasons are honesty, integrity, quality, and kindness. For Good Reasons Roofing. Give them a call, 812-360-4469. They will come and give you a free inspection and a transparent quote. You will be completely satisfied because the owner, Tony Pulliam, would not let it be anything less than your satisfaction. So look for them at forgoodreasons.com. The number 4, goodreasons.com. Or call them today, 812-360-4469. For Good Reasons Roofing, your local hometown roofing specialist.
Welcome back to the General Store with our very special guest, John Laskowski, and telling some great stories. We started at the beginning of his life, and now we're up to where he's been recruited to play ball at IU. And you have a special a favorite story that you'd like for him to tell.
John shared with me before, and it's very interesting to hear what interested him about IU at one time. So I'll let you go ahead and take off.
Recruiting was a lot simpler in the day. There was a lot of film that coaches watched, and some was an interview with the kid. Is this type of kid that'll fit our program? And Coach, I didn't know Coach was going after Trigovich. They don't tell you that.
Yeah, sure.
He's in Northern Indiana. He's either been to see Trigovich or he's just leaving him, to come see me. Right. You had a backup plan. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So he's at St. Joe High one day, and Coach Downwall calls me out of class. He says, "Hey, Coach Knight's here. He wants to talk to you." I said, "Oh, great," and you could tell he was a very disciplined, very serious, no funny stuff. And other coaches were more ad lib, if you will. And so Knight, we're in a room together, and he goes, "Hey," he said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "I just signed a contract. Your senior year, if you come to Indiana, your senior in Indiana, we're going to play in the Rainbow Classic in Honolulu, Hawaii." Mm-hmm. And we're going to spend 4 days in Hawaii playing 3 games of basketball. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, I've never been on vacation, and I've never been out of St. Joe County. All right. So he's talking about going to Hawaii, and he's going to pay for my way there.
Right.
I went, whoa, this is over the top. Okay. I try to keep a straight face. I said, oh, wow, that's great, Coach. And so it works out. Of course, I go to Indiana, and now time goes by, and now it's December of my senior year.
Yeah.
And this Rainbow Classic trip is coming up, man. I'm thinking this is great,
Yeah.
So we're playing Notre Dame right in South Bend, and just for halftime, I hurt my ankle on a shot, and I'm feeling funny. And so I'm in an ankle brace. I go to see the doctors, and I'm missing a couple games now, Well, now it's time to it's over Christmas. It's time to go to Hawaii. And he comes over to him and he goes, hey, he said, if you can't play, he said, I can't take you to Hawaii. I mean, it's an extra plane ticket. It's the hotel, the food. I'll just have to leave you here. And I'm like, what the heck? I've been waiting 4 years, and you're going to call me on a technicality just because I can't play? I'm part of the team. And I was thinking also to myself, and it's during practice. He goes, okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He said, now he's 35 years old. Yeah. Okay. So he's not, he's still young. He played Big Ten basketball, He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play you a game of horse. If you beat me in a game of horse, I'll take you to Hawaii. Thinking, okay, all right, because I'm in my prime.
Right.
I said, okay, let's go. And we play game of horse, 5 baskets.
Right.
I kicked his butt.
Yeah.
And I said, Coach, I'll show you who's going to go to Hawaii. All right. So now whether or not he missed a couple I don't know, So we get to Hawaii, and of course I'm the super sub. 8 minutes, 9 minutes go by. He puts me in the game. We're playing Florida. Okay. And I get in the game and I score in 18 seconds after being in the game. I score a basket. Okay. Yeah. So we win the game, and the opposing coach, I can't remember his name now, but he was in the press conference. And he goes, who the heck is that guy? He scored in 18 seconds. Why didn't he play that guy at the beginning of the game,
Right.
So the ankle injury was over, and I got to play.
And you got to go to Hawaii.
And I got to go to Hawaii.
That's
it was great. So it came down to I was going to go to Western Michigan, Butler before they were Butler, Indiana State, DePaul in Chicago, Indiana Central, which is now University of Annapolis. I mean, mid-range schools. I mean, I got good too late, and guys were just already going somewhere else, know. And so I visit Indiana. It's the week after Little 500, so it's nothing going on. And the campus is beautiful. And I get home and I go, oh my gosh, that's just the greatest place there is. And Coach Donald sets me down. He says, okay, here's 6 schools that are good schools. You're going to play there. Okay, you're going to get an education, because I couldn't go to college without a scholarship. Right. He said, and Indiana is the only big school after you. He said, you got to choose one of these 6, or you can take Indiana. He said, if you take Indiana, you may not play. I mean, they got Steve Downing. Right. McGinnis was still there at the time.
Exactly.
And those guys are all state and all stars. And, you know, he said, would you go to Indiana if you didn't play? I said, absolutely. If I get to play, that's icing on the cake.
There you go.
And it turned out where I got the
we need more like
and
you.
Get to play. And I got to play. So that turned out good. I did have an interesting recruiting trip to DePaul in Chicago. Yes. Ray Meyer was the coach there. Okay.
Yeah, he's legendary.
And took the South Shore train over on a weekend. And Friday night, he took me out to dinner. Yeah. And we go into the Chicago restaurant. I mean, I was just a Polish kid from the west side of South Bend. You know, I'm way out of my element here, okay? Sure. We go into this big steak place. You know, these dark panel restaurants with the dim lights, you know, and we go in there for steak, and we get a table way in the back, way in the back. And so we're so far back that the fire exit door with the little push handle, the metal door, that's where our table is. We're right there, okay? And I'm thinking, well, there's nicer tables in the front, but he's got me in the back. And we got the table there, just me and him, but it's set for 3. There's 3 plates and 3, you know. And he keeps looking at this door. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on here? You know? And we're about halfway through dinner, and sure enough, the door knocks, and he answers the door, and some guy walks in. And this guy, you know, he's dressed beautifully, a suit with a vest and the tie and the hat, you know. And I don't know much, but I'm thinking this guy's coming in the alley, okay? This guy's
Yes.
He's in the
I
mafia.
got
This
you.
guy's,
I got you.
you know.
Yeah.
Hey, sit down. This is the kid I've been telling you about here. Sit down. I want you to meet this kid. So we start talking, you know, and he leans over the table and he goes, hey, kid, I want you to know something. We take very good care of our players at DePaul University. And I'm thinking, wow, what does that mean?
Yeah.
10 minutes go by and he says, hey, kid, we take very good care of our players at DePaul University. He did it a third time, and I still didn't say anything because I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Well, the question is asked, and if you say, how do you take very good care of your players?
Yes.
They will tell you.
Yes.
They will pay you money
Yes.
under the table to come to school.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I didn't get that far.
Yeah.
I just said, that's it. So it's time to leave after the visit, and coaches drive me to the train station again with one of the players. It's Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a Sunday, Mother's Day. So he gets me on the train. The kid has a $20 bill. He buys me a plane ticket or a train ticket. And he comes back to the car and says, Coach, here's the change. He goes, no. Buy the kid's mom flowers and let him keep the change. So it's all about, hey, So the guy runs back on the, hey, here's the flowers.
Yeah.
Coach wants you to have the change too. What's $5 or whatever? I don't know.
Sure.
And it was all about
Right. Sure.
Showing you the money.
Sure.
show me the money. It was NIL before NIL.
Yeah. Oh,
okay?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I turned that one down.
Oh, yeah.
I turned that one down. Indiana worked out
you.
great.
Good for you.
Wow.
Yeah. Great story. So you told us also about night driving you around campus, I think.
Now, was this during a recruiting?
I think it was during the recruiting. Is that correct?
There was it was during the trip, right? He actually flew me in a plane, from South Bend to Indianapolis.
Okay.
And he drove up in the car with Coach Wetlick, assistant coach.
Yeah.
And so he sends Wetlick in the airport to pick me up. How he found me, I have no idea. He goes, come on, we're going down to Indiana. And Knight was not a very good driver.
Okay.
I mean, he got speeding tickets.
I've heard this.
He was distracted a lot, And so Knight's driving, so he's right into the windshield, and Wetlick's in the front seat, and I'm in the back seat,
Right.
okay? And Knight starts the pitch right away.
Yes.
Okay, he talks about Indiana. Well, being so few times on an airplane, like my first time,
Right.
my ears pop and I can't hear anything.
Oh, no.
But I'm too shy to say, Coach, it's my first plane trip ever. I can't know what you're saying because he's going right,
Yeah.
And I shook my head a lot and said, yes. And I'm thinking, this is the dumbest kid we've ever had. This kid doesn't say anything, And somehow I survived that. And I think it was because he was out of choices.
Yeah.
I was the third choice, like
Yeah.
I said. So I get to come to Indiana. It was just
So did he ever come back to that car trip at all? Did he ever come back to you and say, so what was the deal? You were answering yes to everything. He never mentioned
He's
it.
taken everybody he can get at this point.
Yeah.
He's got to get.
Yeah, you were the first one. You were in his
I was in the first
recruiting
class. Yeah, Steve Green was the first guy he got.
Okay.
I visited Indiana State. Okay. Had a nice visit there. Gordon Stauffer was the coach. And R.T. Green, Steve's brother, was a basketball player there. Okay. Which I didn't know who Steve was and didn't know who R.T. was. But R.T.'s roommate was my little league baseball pitcher. He was playing baseball in Indiana State. The coaches found out about it and said, hey, we'll have R.T. show him around because your buddy Stu's there and make this one happy thing, And so we spend the weekend together and doing stuff. And R.T. says Sunday afternoon, it's time to go. He said, what'd you think of your trip to Indiana State? Because he's got to give feedback back to the coach, I go, this is very nice. You got a great place,
Right.
He said, well, where else you thinking of going? I said, well, Western Michigan, DePaul,
Yeah.
And there's a new coach at Indiana.
Yeah.
And I may get to take a trip to Indiana. Well, he knew Steve was visiting. Of course, he didn't say anything yet. Right. I've known the guy for 2 days. He leans over to me and he says, if you could get a chance to go to Indiana, don't come here. And I said, why, thank you very much. I sure appreciate that.
Amazing.
And I see him today and we laugh about that story because he knew Indiana would be a better deal than Indiana State. So he became a lawyer. He's a judge. He's on TV now.
Nice.
So it turned out to be a great guy.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
So I ended up at Indiana.
So your first year, you play with who are the stars at Indiana?
So there's
Steve Downing.
freshman team available.
Right.
It's the last year of freshman team. So we had our own freshman team.
That's
I
what I
played
thought.
8
It's
games.
like that era,
We played against the varsity in practice.
Okay, so wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt. So when you come in as a freshman at IU, it wasn't just one team. There was a freshman team and then
A varsity team.
Really? I
Yep.
did not
It was
know
way
that.
for years. Yeah.
I did not know
Been
that.
that way for years, and then that was the last year they did it, because the next
I knew it was
year,
right in the area. Yeah.
Wynn Buckner, Abernathy, Jim Cruz were all eligible. So
Yeah.
that second year, my sophomore year, is my first year. It's also Abernathy. So we had lots of the guys that first year. So my freshman year, we had 8 games. We drive cars, play somebody. Nobody was there. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
kind of an introduction. So my second year as a sophomore, now we got like 8 or 9 new guys.
Right.
So Downing and Ritter were the 2 seniors. They were the 2 guys that were the heavy load.
Yeah.
And then Steve Green and myself and Cruzy was a starter. Buckner started. We had 2 freshmen starting guards.
Yeah. That's right.
And we win the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We win the Big Ten
Unbelievable.
championship in Knight's second year there.
Unbelievable.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, in that day, you had to win the championship of your conference. There's no conference tournaments except in the SEC or the ACC. Then you got to go to the tournament. Second place, you don't get to go. You go to the NIT.
Right.
And so we won the tournament. Northwestern, who was terrible, beat Minnesota on the last day of the season, and we won our game, and that gave us the chance to go to the NCAA tournament. We beat Kentucky in the tournament. We go to St. Louis for the Final Four.
Right.
And we play UCLA.
Yeah.
With one of their great teams, Bill
Yeah.
Walton
Right.
and all the group that they had. Johnny Wooden's the coach.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, 2 years ago, I'm playing South Bend, Washington,
Right.
in my senior high school, and now I'm playing against Johnny Wooden and UCLA.
Right.
I mean, whoa! This is like,
How it changes so quick.
how could this
And
be?
here you are on that stage.
And
It's
we
unbelievable.
lost by 11 on a.
But you
on a
they played well.
we played pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Downing got a 5th foul on a charge that people still will dispute.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But it was only his second year there that Knight makes it to the Final Four. That's
Unbelievable.
how quick he was able to turn
Turn
that
that-
around.
It was.
That's
amazing.
incredible.
When we come back, we want to talk about that. You're the only team that won this tournament. We'll talk about that tournament in just a little bit.
Well, in fact, we're going to ask John to come back and join us next Friday because there's
Yeah.
just way too much stuff that we want to hear still yet. He's still got there's a lot to talk about. And so if we could talk him into that, can we talk you into that? You'll stick
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
so be sure and join us next Friday because you want to hear the rest of this story of John Laskowski. You're not going to want to miss it. So he'll be with us next Friday, and if it's the Lord's will, we'll be here, and you will be too at the general store. We'll see you then.